Fuck the movies.
Colossal is a 2016 science fiction black comedy film written and directed by Nacho Vigalondo, starring Anne Hathaway, Jason Sudeikis, and Dan Stevens.
Sure, you get that tingle? You know you're watching something that's going to change the course of history. You all right?
Yeah, it's this nervous tick I have. I get this itch. Oh my God.
It's dancing.
Is dancing like...
Holy shit.
Keep it cool. Oh my God, those people are looking at us.
She's the monster.
I'm John, the host, and I am joined by my fellow monster man, Mr. Coleman Yeti.
That's right. I grew out my monster beard just for this shit. Wolfman.
I mean, this is a film about you, right? A Yeti is a monster, so to speak, so... You should feel very at home talking about this tiny, micro-budgeted, elongated short film.
Right, it's my kid.
This movie got made because a Spanish director by the name of Nacho Vigalondo had a fun idea. He's just like, I want to make a monster movie. I want to make a King Kong, but I have no money.
Fuck the movies.
So, how do we make that? Well, the premise is that we're going to make a monster film, but it's going to be about this woman that gets drunk, and that's how she controls this monster that materializes in South Korea. Are you with me?
Right.
Sure, give me money to make this. Well, they gave him $15 million to make this. Are you surprised that a movie like this got made?
I am surprised that it got made, and I'm surprised at how good of a movie it was.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's we're bearing the lead a little bit, so I guess you enjoyed it. I'm gonna slow roll my initial thoughts on it. This isn't necessarily a cult film. It's not like it has a huge following or anything like that, but this show also is about films that just like kind of came and went, but deserve a little bit more staying power, and I think that this does. I don't think this is the best movie ever, but the stretch of the imagination is what made this worth the watch and worth like talking about still. So it's an anomaly because it has this monster cast, right? You have these two huge name actors. Anne Hathaway, has done everything under the sun, and Jason Sudeikis isn't really like that type of actor like an Anne Hathaway, but he was like back in 2015, he was writing his own ticket, like he could have done anything. And these two actors with all this clout got behind this project, got behind this idea because I think they wanted to do something else.
Based on, just the cover, and never judge a book by its cover, right? So based on the cover, you showed me this movie. You're like, hey, let's watch this. And I'm going, all right, this looks right up our alley. This looks like the type of movie that we would typically do. It looks absolutely ridiculous. And then I was really surprised at what kind of movie it was. Because I was just expecting this monster movie. The story surrounding it was so much deeper than a monster movie that it really caught me by surprise. And I ended up really enjoying it, just versus thinking that it was just going to be another movie we can shit all over for how ridiculous it is.
If you're looking for a straight, like, linear storytelling vehicle, I don't think that's what this is, because there's a lot of stuff going on here. It almost shoots like a music video, where it's very interpretive and it's very metaphorical. So it's kind of a mess tonally. Like it's so easy to poke holes in the story of this and the what if and why does, like, the rules of this movie, nothing really makes sense, right? Because of lightning. That's
Yeah,
it manifests these two monsters from these kids because they have toys that they're probably not even that precious about. It's just like, once you start going down that route, you're like, this movie is ridiculous, like hodgepodge of nothingness. But once you stop being a dick and you just appreciate what it's trying to say and not so much like what you're actually watching, I think that's where the success is.
A drunk lady that's also a Godzilla and an asshole that's also a robot, and they get drunk in the park and fight in South Korea.
Right.
And kill people.
Can you hear me? No punching?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
good.
And they're in what, like California-ish? Something.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter, right? They're just in town, but
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
maybe I think it's like close to Boston actually, or something like that. And it doesn't matter. It could be in Lancaster, California, or something.
Small town America.
Right. What matters is that the action takes place on a completely different continent. So it's just so weird that all of these two people who are very, very flawed, their decisions to just be degenerative people affect millions of lives. And that, once you put that into perspective, you're like, oh shit, that is super interesting.
And do you know that Nacho like wanted to make a monster movie? Because what I got from it was a completely different movie that was made. I mean, it was really more about this woman's journey and dealing with like abusive men and coming out of it and taking control of her own life again. And it was really this great story, you know, surrounding the monsters, the ridiculous monsters, like came this amazing story out of it. So yeah, he's just looking to make.
He just wanted to make
movie.
a cheap monster movie for as little budget as possible, and he figured that was the only way to do it, and everything else just came ancillary, which is kind of cool, right? It's just like, oops, I made a deeper movie than I thought I was gonna make.
In 5 million years, if somebody watches my films in the future, they will have a clear vision of which kind of asshole I was.
So this guy's a madman, right? Like he's just a comic book nerd. He's just happy to be there. In another interview, they're just like, you know, what would be your monster if you could dream it up? And like Anne Hathaway got into this like big thing. I want to have like iridescent wings and I want to hug and blah blah blah. And he's just like, well, she's my spirit animal. She's my monster because if she's a huge name, she didn't sign up to do this, I wouldn't be making movie. So
Fuck the movies.
great, you know, she's my spirit animal, and everyone's just like awkwardly like, what? And he's like day drinking out of a fucking tall boy in a paper bag. It's just that kind of like craziness. He has this like old school like vision of what filmmaking is. He loves the naked filmmaking of like Army of Darkness, or not even Army of Darkness. He loves like Evil Dead, like Bad Taste and all that. So he learned to make films from watching like old Sam Raimi movies of just like, oh, I could see the strings. That's how, you know, you do these type of things. Got me because Anne Hathaway was just like, people were burnt the fuck out on Anne Hathaway at this point. I think she was just coming off of like the Alice in Wonderlands and stuff, and she just wanted to change up in her career just as like a refresher. So she was asking her agent or her manager just like, find me something that's small, so the stakes for my career aren't that big, but just to kind of dip my toe into this like indie scene a little bit, because everyone was just force-fed her on like the big screen. And she came across this, and so she got like right behind it, and it just surprised the shit out of the director. He's like, what? You know, why do you want to do my movie? You know, like, I guess we could jump into the performances. What did you think about her performance as the lead, as this flawed, functioning alcoholic named Gloria?
You know, I didn't put too much thought into any of the performances. I enjoyed them all. Kind of watching through it, got lost in the story, got lost in the turn. You know, I thought Sudeikis was great. Tim Blake Nelson, is it? The smartest, dumb-looking guy on the planet.
He's in Coen Brothers. Yeah.
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? He's from Buster Scruggs, too. He's done a ton of movies.
He's great. He stole every
him.
scene.
Oh yeah, of course. And he normally does. Again, he's so good. I thought Anne Hathaway did a good job.
Your boy Dan Stevens from The Guest.
And so, we're gonna be good friends.
Can it be less angry?
Oh, that's where he's from.
Come on!
Yeah. I was like, that guy looks
I
familiar.
love Dan Stevens.
Yeah, he's as good in this as he is in that piece of shit.
Fuck you. Jesus Christ.
It was well played. I love the fact that she's like waking up on the floor all the time. Like she just pass out wherever she pass out and, you know, wakes up sitting, wakes up lying on a hardwood floor, wakes up on
That was a good
park
ongoing
bench.
bit throughout,
Yeah, the alcoholic part, but I really love Jason Sudeikis in this, and the nice guy, and it's really just this whole story of like him having an issue with power and control, and you go back and think about the movie or go rewatch the movie, and he keeps giving her stuff in the beginning, and you think he's just a nice guy that really likes her, and he's really just trying to get control over her the whole time.
Want anything to drink?
Sure, I'll take a beer. Thanks.
Great. Let's make it 2. It's good having her back in town.
And it really ends up being this battle for her in dealing with this really controlling guy that threatens to like get hammered and go down to the park and trash a neighborhood in Seoul, South Korea, if she doesn't do what he says. But she's also dealing with the Dan Stevens character on the other side that shows up because he misses her, but really just needs her to need him. So he shows up, puts her job down, says, come back and live with me. Just let me keep giving you money and let me keep taking care of you so that I'm forcing you to need me. And so it really ends up being this great story of her breaking free of both of those things in the most ridiculous way.
Right. And I love how they run those two parallels. And I think that's the biggest success of this movie outside of just like the fun idea of how the monster shenanigans were executed. But I think that as far as the human side goes and the drama side goes is the two parallels that they are upfront, or Nacho, Vigalondo is upfront with how much of an asshole Dan Stevens is, who plays Tim, her ex-boyfriend, right from the start. But Sudeikis does this such a crazy turn that you start talking yourself into a better memory of Dan Stevens' character. You're just like, well, at least it's not this motherfucker. As good as Jason Sudeikis is in this, and he is.
My life is just as amazing as yours now, for once. And if you don't like it, fuck you.
Because normally, to me, I think that he is so interchangeable with, like, Ed Helms. He's so, like, blah to me. Yeah, to me, and it's just a taste thing, I think. Most of the time, I think he's just kind of forgettable. But in this, he gets to make this crazy Emperor Palpatine type turn. It's so abrupt, which is kind of jarring. And again, if you really sit down and you watch the film and you want to look at it more critically, you're just like, his turn just is so abrupt, and it just doesn't telegraph it, and it doesn't make sense. I don't care about that. I care about the journey that you get, because he does that nice guy so well. Like he when he turns on the charm, he's a very charming person. And then when he's an asshole, you want to kick him in the fucking teeth. And so he does his job, right? He does his job so well, and you wind up really rooting for the relationship with Dan Stevens until she makes that decision for the audience. She's like, no, fuck both of these people. I'm going to just focus on myself. I think that's a huge, and even with the other like guy, Joel, the Austin Stoll character, once the whole movie plays out, you get why someone like that is necessary to her growth as well. He might as well be a bottle of whiteout on your desk. Like he's so just like flaccid.
He's the Hallmark movie.
Right. And he's just so stupid.
That's what he is. He's the small town guy. That, yeah, I mean, he's a dummy, whatever, but he's just the nice small town guy. I mean, he's the nicest guy in this. And Unlike you, I like Sudeikis in almost everything. And Ed Helms, I get what you're. Yeah, I don't. Ed Helms is dumb and everything. I think Sudeikis puts on. I mean, he's got roles where it works, right? But I think Sudeikis puts in a better comedic performance. I think he puts in a better serious performance, just in general. So I like him a lot. And then again, in retrospect and thinking about it, like, yes, he did play the nice guy so much, but that nice guy was just setting up the controlling asshole that he really
great sociopath.
is. You know, it was just, it was just, you know, starting to dig in and get that control from the beginning. And then once he finds out she slept with Mr. Hallmark, then, you know, then he's like, all right, well, now it's time to really let myself out. And he just becomes an asshole in every sense of the word. You know, every opportunity he gets, he's just a dick. And there's that just straight abuse through line where he, you know, gives her a bunch more shit and she goes over and he's like, I'm so sorry, and apologizing, and just that stereotypical like abusive relationship where like I hit you and then like, oh baby, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
I hurt you. I just such a shitty day. I can't bear to even think about it. I'm so sorry.
And so it had that until he finally just went off the rails and was all asshole. Once Dan Stevens came back in and they had the argument in the bar, I wasn't rooting for him either, because I was just going, oh, this is just a completely different kind of asshole and manipulation. And honestly, at that point, I'm like, yeah, just go get your Hallmark ending. At least Joel's a nice fucking guy. He doesn't add much to the movie outside of just being dumb and being manipulated, but at least he was a nice guy, you know. And even in the end where these two guys are like, oh, how come the girl didn't come do whatever the fuck I want her to do? He's rooting for her, like, yeah, way to go, you know. So at least there's that nice guy out there somewhere. And then in the end, again, she spoilers, because that's what we do. In the end, you know, she goes to Seoul. She figures out how to get back at Sudeikis. This was a great scene. You know, as the monster, she picks him up back where he is, and he's bawling.
You little bitch.
Know, and you're like, oh shit, he feels really bad. And then, you know, finally like screams like, put me down, you fucking bitch. Like, oh fuck, dude. Like, you just
can't do it. Yeah.
You just don't let go. And then she throws him the fuck away, and
they'll clean him up later. Yeah.
Is free. Yeah.
Yeah, and in a lesser movie, she would have picked door number 1, 2, or 3. She would have reformed Jason Sudeikis' character. She would have picked the Hallmark guy. Would have gone back with Dan Stevens just as a lesser evil to get the fuck out of there. In a lesser movie. Yeah. And so Nacho Vigalondo allowed her character to choose door number 4. And that's what elevates the through line, you know, because I have to be honest, I was giving shit to Jason Sudeikis. I think Anne Hathaway is the most milquetoast actress working. I think it's terrible. I think she's just not interesting at all. And that is also in this.
Are you angry?
Because I don't think she's good in this. Okay, I'm putting on my indie I'm putting my indie bangs on. So I have to emote through my shaggy hair. I never bought she was hungover. I never bought she was waking up in the corner of a fucking room. She just still looked like doughy-eyed Anne Hathaway, and she didn't look like she was really wanting to even try.
I will give you that. I know Anne Hathaway's always gotten a ton of hate. I just always thought people didn't like the way she looked. I don't know. I guess that was my assumption. Yeah. I never thought about her being a bad actress. I was indifferent to her performance.
But that's a failure. She's the lead. You can't be.
That's true. I think I got caught up in the story just because the story was so good compared to what I was preparing to watch. Even give any thought to her performance.
And that's the most ringing indictment in itself, right?
Right. Yeah, you don't watch it and go like, holy cow. Like, again, like with Sudeikis, you can go like, oh man, he went from this to this, and like, emoted.
Yeah. He had he displayed the entire, and I'm not, again, not the biggest Jason Sudeikis fan. In this, he was a complete success as far as his performance went, because he got to paint with all the colors of the Crayola box. She was just in this movie, and I was looking back at like reviews, like, you know, critic reviews for this film, and everyone's like, Anne Hathaway was a revelation. She should have been doing this type of role all the time. Like, she didn't do anything. I didn't buy anything.
No. I mean, if you look at like you're talking alcoholic, whatever. If you go to a Charlize Theron, if you go to performances like that, where like people just transform themselves into this other thing and this other character, and the alcoholic and the, you know, everything that they turn into, like, yeah, it's got none of that. She's supposed to be a raging alcoholic. Her hangovers look like what you assume my hangovers are.
Okay, inside joke, Coleman doesn't get hangovers, and it's bullshit. So that's not true. I just don't get headaches. I'll drink the rest of this cup, and tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll be like, bubble guts. My head will feel like it's in a vice, and then I'll call him, and he'll be like, oh, I feel like death. I'm like, oh, your headache's real bad? Oh, no, I don't get headaches. Oh, you're shitting yourself? No, my stomach's fine. Okay, so you're having a day?
They're rough days, okay?
I feel tired.
It's hard to get out of bed, John.
Oh. And then I crack my back. I was fine. Back on track. I'm glad that she did it, because, again, I don't think this movie even would have gotten to the eyeballs it did without someone of her clout like involved in it. And it's funny because, like, I see interviews of her doing pressers, press junkets and stuff about the film, and she showed more emotion in those than she did on screen. And that's just because I just don't think she knew how to do something like this. She didn't know how to do something this small, because everything else she was in, she's like, I'm in a Tim Burton movie, I better, you know, emote like to overdo everything, or, you know, like Les Mis or something like that, and like act to the back of the theater or something, where she just didn't need to do that. She just needed to do less in this, but she just didn't do anything. It was like that scene from Forgetting Sarah Marshall where Paul Rudd is like, do more. No. Pop up, do less. No. Now you're just boogie boarding. Like, she was just fucking boogie boarding this entire time. And that sucked, because everyone else was in. Everyone else was doing it. Like, Nacho was directing his ass off for the no budgetness of this film. The effects were good. Like, it looked like a fucking monster movie, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's cartoonish, but it was what you're expecting from this movie. Again, if you just look at the cover, you're like, all right, it's not like a new $1 billion, you know, Godzilla CG. You went, okay, this is some low budget monster, whatever, and they're cartoonish, but it kind of plays to what they are, that they're just giant avatars of these two characters, you know.
And that's exactly it. Like, go for, okay, put poor performances aside, put sloppy storytelling aside, and just go in saying, what does addiction do to someone, and what does abuse do to someone? And now put those two together, and it's these two people going through real shit thrown together, and having to overcome not only their own strife, but the person that's also causing strife in their life. There's so much, and maybe that's why it was played a little bit more whimsical from both our two leads, because they're going through the worst of the worst that humans could usually go through, but it's done in like a fairy tale kind of way. So everything's fantastical, from her, you know, from them being giant monsters fighting each other to them working at the bar together. Everything is played a little lighter, because I think that this could have gotten a lot darker and a lot more morose than it should have been. So it's still light enough to where it's cinematically digestible, rather than just being like a slog. Because it's just a fun movie, right? Like, the subject matter is dark, but it's fun. And that's a success, I guess.
I don't know if I'd call it a fun movie. just because of how dark it gets and what the subject matter ends up being, which is again why it baffles me that this guy wrote this movie just looking to make a monster movie and shit out this story.
Well, God bless him, because it's a fun one, and I feel like I'm coming off a little bit more negative. I do definitely. We'll go right into. Would we recommend this film? Who do we recommend it for? I'll go first. I would definitely recommend this film. I think just the fact that we're doing a episode on it is my endorsement for more people to check it out. It's streaming on Hulu at the moment, and who knows, like with streaming services, that's very fluid. But I think it's fun, just with a lot of caveats. Like, go into it either completely blind, like I hope you didn't watch this if you haven't seen this and you're like, I want to go check out Colossal, because you're like, I'm not fucking checking out that, like, she sucks. Yeah, she does. But, you know, go into it completely blind, or go into it knowing what kind of a movie it is. It is a metaphor of a movie. It's not really what you're seeing on the screen. It's not really people getting crushed in soul because two, like, assholes are fighting on a playground. Expose of addiction and abuse.
Right. The monsters they're fighting in 100%. Their personal lives.
Would you recommend this film, Coleman, and who would you recommend it for?
Definitely to people in South Korea.
Right up there.
Yeah, I would recommend this movie. And honestly, I'd recommend it to just about anybody. And it's something that I'd recommend to anyone, not telling them they're going to like it, just to see what they think about it and what they take away from it. You know, if they really take away the other part of the story, or they go into it and they're like, I was expecting this monster movie and there's all this talking and shit, I don't understand. Yeah, I would tell just about anyone to watch this, if for no other reason than just to ask them what they thought about it afterwards, and see if they hate Anne Hathaway as much as you do.
Name a good Anne Hathaway movie.
Princess Diaries.
Fuck the movies.
Well, with that being said, well, you're the real monster here. If you like our skis, you could check us out in podcast form as well. Like, if you want to drive around and listen to Coleman and I's hot takes on films, you could do that without crashing your car by looking at these beautiful beards. You could just listen to us. Where can everyone find you, sir?
Everyone can find me at Coleman Yeti on Instagram and the Twitter bird. You can find me right here on the Cult of Films. And every once in a great while, check me out on the channel Cascade Backcountry on YouTube, going on adventures with my friend, and just like here, talking a lot of shit.
You can find me on Twitter at Jon the Host. You could also follow this very show at the Cult of Films. And until next time, don't do this, because fucking people die.
Fuck the movie.